Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining me for this first episode of Mindshare Matters. Today, I'm going to share with you the story of Amelia Wilcox. Yes, she's a successful entrepreneur. She's founder and CEO of Zenovate. But even though that will come out as part of the story, what I can't wait to share with you is Amelia, the daughter, the sister, the mother, the human. I think you'll be unbelievably impressed with how much Amelia has had to overcome to achieve the success that she's had today. And I'm confident that her story will inspire you. Let's get going. Welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining me for this first episode of Mindshare Matters. I'm so excited to be taking on this journey, and I can't wait to share amazing guests with you. Today, my first guest is my friend Amelia Wilcox. I can't wait to have her share her story with you. We're coming to you from Park City, Utah, from our current office space, but those of you watching live or on video will recognize that this space is going to change for the next episode because we're changing offices. But let's jump right into the conversation with Miss Amelia. Hi, Amelia. Thank you so much for coming, because you have nothing else to do these days, right? You're just hanging out and
taking lots of naps.
Taking naps and enjoying retirement. That's what being an entrepreneur is like, right?
That's what we think it is.
Right. We fantasize. Let's work for yourself. Be your own boss, because that life is so much better that way. And you can now work 15, 20 hours a week. Right?
That's what you go into it for. Like, my husband and I were actually talking about that the other day, and he's like, I feel like the goal keeps changing. You're like, as soon as I get to this, then I'm going to pull back and vacation a lot. It's a moving target, right?
And it's always about a year or two out, right? Yeah. You're just constantly chasing it.
Yeah.
Amelia, I'd love to start from the real beginning. And I'd love to start learning where you were born and what your life was like as a little kid. And so let's go all the way back 22 years ago when you were born.
Oh, yeah.
And let's talk about that.
So, fun fact that not very many people know, I was actually born in Utah. Wow. My mom lived here. I don't say that out loud very often, so just for this audience.
Yeah, you've learned it here. All right.
So I was born here. My mom was pretty young. She was 20. I was actually born the day after she turned 20.
Wow.
And she got divorced when I was probably about 5. And then we moved to Missouri. And she married my stepfather. And so I grew up in Kansas City, Missouri. That's where I went to school. We lived in an apartment for the first few years. And then we bought a house just kind of about 10 minutes away from the Country Club Plaza, if anyone knows where that is, but downtown Kansas City. And so that's kind of where I grew up. We grew up pretty poor. I remember my dad working multiple jobs. I remember he had this job at a foundry at night, which I'm like, never even really knew what that was. Like, even as a kid, I didn't understand it, but melting metal and doing stuff. And it was a night shift that he worked, and then worked during the day. My mom and stepdad met each other working at Domino's Pizza, doing that. And then I remember my dad going to school to be an accountant and still working these other jobs. And just, so we were home alone a lot because my mom worked. She got a job at Hypermart, which is actually the world's biggest Walmart. They only ever built one, I think, and it's in Kansas City, Missouri.
I didn't know that.
And so she Walmart took her and taught her how to decorate cakes, and so she became a cake decorator and worked there for a long time, kind of moved up through some different ranks, and then eventually she went to nursing school after I'd moved away, and now she's a nurse. But yeah, growing up, both my parents worked. We didn't have a lot of money. We lived in a neighborhood. I remember we got robbed once. That was one of the most vulnerable feelings I've ever had is like someone broke into our house and stole a bunch of our stuff and like rifled through our things. And I was probably maybe in about 8th grade at the time. So I just remember feeling so violated, like, and unsafe. And like, I remember my mom and I had like pulled up to the house and we could see that the door had been like broken into, and it was like, don't go inside. And we had to like go to the police station, and it was that kind of stuff. So I went to a school, I went to school in Raytown, Missouri, which is, it's now predominantly African-American. When I was there, it was about 50-50. And just, I thought it was a fine place. I thought it was a fine place to live and to work. I had a job at the YMCA there. It's not a YMCA anymore, but yeah. And then the house I grew up in, just a few, to give you context, a few quick stories. We had one bathroom. I had 3 other siblings. So my brother's about 1.5 years younger than me. Then my mom and my stepdad had my 2 sisters. And so they were babies when I lived at home. And even when I left and got married, like, they were still babies. So now they're 24 and 21. And yeah, I mean, I'm only 22, so. Yeah,
so it's, you're the baby in the family.
That's right. So yeah, there were 6 of us living in the house. We had one bathroom. The bathroom, like, kind of rotted away. The floors had rotted away. So I was always pretty embarrassed to have friends over to the house. And so I would always just be gone at friends' house. I didn't really ever want to be at home. And I remember they had a plank that went from the frame of the doorway to the toilet, which sat on like a 30-degree angle, and you had to like walk this board to get to the toilet, and just, didn't have the money to fix it. The roof leaked, there was mold in the walls. We had a septic tank, and it just kind of would spill out into the yard. So in 7th grade, I actually broke my arm ice skating on our backyard. So that's kind of what I grew up around. And I didn't really know we were poor. I didn't really think, you just grow up and you think, oh, everybody lives like this. So yeah, I didn't really figure that out till later. What was your question?
I was going to say, did you feel as the oldest and as a 5-year-old at the time your parents separated, did you feel some sort of responsibility for your mom? Did you feel you're a very sort of take charge person, and I suspect that stems from back then, but how did you feel responsibility wise for your mom and or your sisters?
Yeah, it's an interesting question. Therapist Bassam. I do have a lot of memories of feeling responsible. I don't remember a lot from when I was that young, but I do remember like walking into a room and my mom was on the couch crying, and I was like wanting to comfort her, and I couldn't. And I always felt responsible for my little brother, even at a young age. Sometimes I would be left in charge of him. I do remember being left in the car with him once, like a trailer or something. And my parents had left, and my brother had like jumped off of something, and he hit his head and actually like busted his head on the corner of something, and just that feeling of responsibility, and I was going to be in trouble. And I mean, I had to have been like 5 or 6 at the time. So, and I've gone to therapy for all these things. So I'm very self-aware of like, oh, this happened, and that's kind of how it shaped me this way. But yeah, I definitely felt a lot of responsibility even when I was young. For taking care of everyone. And then my little sisters, when they came along, my older little sister, I was 13 when she was born, and the other one I was 17. And so a lot of my teenage years were just like, I was taking care of my sisters all the time. I couldn't do things I wanted to do sometimes if I had to watch them. My sister I had when I was 13, by the time I was 17, she just tagged along with me and my friends everywhere, just hanging around with teenagers all the time. So yeah, I've always felt like they were kind of like my kids / sisters. It's kind of a weird relationship where I do feel responsible for them and wanting to make sure their needs are met and taken care of like a mother figure would, but then they're also like my baby sisters. So as they've transitioned into adulthood, we've kind of shifted, and now like my 24-year-old sister lives here in Lehigh, and we hang out and do things together and go out to eat, and get pedicures and she's more like a peer now, where before it was kind of like a parent-child relationship, even though they're my sisters. It's just that age gap. I don't think there's any way you cannot feel that way when there's that much space between you.
No, absolutely. In fact, it's you were not much younger than your mom was when she had you, relative to your
It's true.
17. When you were
Yeah.
17 with one sister. That's amazing. Did you referenced the fact that you thought it was how everyone else lived. You did say that you were sometimes a little embarrassed to bring someone home. As you reminisce back now, do you feel like you had a childhood, or do you feel like your childhood was filled with difficulty?
I don't feel like my childhood was filled with difficulty. I feel like I had a childhood. I try to remind myself with my own kids, like I, as a kid, spent a ton of time watching TV and playing video games. And so like sometimes when my 9-year-old plays Minecraft for 2 or 3 hours straight and I feel bad about that, I am like, you know what? I turned out okay. And I watched way more TV and played way more video games than they do. So, no, I mean, I feel like I got to play a lot. I do know, me and my brother were kind of alone at home a lot. We were definitely latchkey kids, and we would come home to an empty house and have a lot of time alone. But with that came a lot of time to play games and use our imaginations and things like that. I think if I had had parents that were home a lot, I probably would have gotten into less trouble when I was a kid. I think my kids now make way better choices than I did when I was younger. But I mean, I'm the kind of person that like I have to go out and make those mistakes and learn by doing, not just by somebody telling me. Or I was not a particularly obedient child. But no, I don't really feel like it was filled with a ton of adversity. I feel like I had a pretty good childhood.
Please describe high school. I always think of high school as such formative years. They're such a difficult time for most people. Please talk about high school. Was high school also in Kansas City, Missouri, or okay?
Yeah. So Braytown South High School is where I went. I was in the marching band. I played the flute. I was in choir. My senior year, I was in our chamber choir, which is like 24-piece choir, and you sing and dance. And we would like go to old folks' homes and like sing Christmas carols and do dances for them, and they loved it. That was probably one of my favorite things. I had a best friend, and we're still good friends today.
Wow.
I'll see her next weekend when I'm visiting my family in Kansas City. And so, yeah, I kind of had my little posse, but we did all sorts of stupid stuff. Like I would kill my kids. Like one of my memories is we had my parents' car, and we tied a shopping cart to the back of it and took turns riding around in the shopping cart through the neighborhoods. And that's the kind of stuff I did for fun. So.
I actually can't picture you that mischievous. I'm impressed. That's great.
Yes, some mom came out of their house and yelled that she was going to call the police because that was unsafe. And we were like, this is perfectly safe. So that kind of stuff, just testing boundaries. Mostly I was the kind of kid that like I wanted to make my friends laugh, and I wanted to entertain them and make them happy. And, my best friend had a lot harder challenges at home than I did growing up, with her parents getting divorced and things like that. And so I always wanted to like cheer her up and make her happy, and all my friends. So I would do stupid stuff to make people laugh all the time. I didn't mind being the butt of everybody's jokes. So I don't get embarrassed very easily as an adult because I grew thick skin as a teen.
So high school does not sound like a bad experience for you. That's fantastic.
No, I think I rather enjoyed it. I was not popular or cool. Like I was a total like band nerd, choir nerd. I was in honor society and did well in school. I'm the kind of person that likes to have straight A's and stuff like that. But yeah, no, I think I enjoyed it.
Hopefully this is going to be inspiring for all the band nerds and choir nerds out there today, that you too can grow up to be Amelia. So what happened after high school, and what process did you think about as you became an adult? It sounds like you were an adult quite a bit before that, but as you sort of decide to go off on your own, what were you thinking? How were you thinking?
Well, I could not wait to get out of the house. My stepdad and I are like super close now.
Wow.
But when I was at home, I hated his guts. Like we did not get along at all. We fought all the time. It was pretty miserable. So I was always mostly just trying to never be home as a teen. So the summer before I went to school in southern Missouri, I was just like, I can't take it anymore. I'm just gonna go down to school right now. Like, I'm just out. So I just left, and I actually just like stayed with my boyfriend for like however many weeks it was before school actually started and I could move into my dorm, which is not like my ethics now as an adult, and I would not want my kids to go move in with their boyfriend. It's not the way that I live now, but at the time I was just like, I just gotta get out of this house. I gotta go somewhere. So yeah, I went to college. I got mixed up with friends that, you know, drank a lot and partied, and I kind of tried that lifestyle, and I was like, this is not for me. This is not right. And I was raised in the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, so we have like certain, you know, like we don't drink, no sex before marriage, don't do drugs, all those types of things. And so I'd kind of like experimented with this other lifestyle. I didn't really like it, and I was tired of being like the only person like me that I knew. So like I always felt like I was weird because people would be like, well, that's not normal. And I wanted to go to a place where I didn't feel weird, where it was like, there's some other people like me. So that's kind of what brought me to Utah, because I left college and I said, I want to go find other people who have the same beliefs that I do, that I can feel supported and I don't, you know, make stupid choices. So I came to Utah just to kind of, I just stayed at my aunt's house, and I just kind of wanted to like take a break and figure out what I wanted to do with my life. And when I moved here, I actually hated it at first, because that's kind of the first time I had to come to terms with the fact that some people don't live authentically, which I have always been like that. So my brain, like, I can't understand why people would act in a way that isn't reflective of who they really are and what they believe. So like, you know, when I was experimenting with alcohol and, you know, partying and stuff, like as a college kid, I was like, I don't believe that anymore and everything. And so for me, it was still authentic to who I was. I wasn't pretending to be something I wasn't. So yeah, when I moved to Utah, it was like, oh, that's weird. Not everybody like their actions match up with who they are. So that was really hard for me, because I mostly have just known authentic people most of my life. And so I had a really hard time. I wanted to come home, but ultimately I decided to stay a little longer. And then I started meeting people who were good and authentic. And good doesn't mean you believe exactly like me. It just means you are who you are, and you don't pretend to be somebody else. That's what it means to me. So I'm like, I don't care what you believe. I just want people that are real and not fake. Do you know what I mean?
I'd love to dig in on that just a little bit.
Yeah.
I've never heard you mention that before. So you were living a college lifestyle, shall we say, and then for some reason you decided it wasn't for you, and that you wanted to feel more connected and more that you can relate to the society you're in. So you chose Utah, I'm assuming Salt Lake City or Salt Lake City, but then you come here and maybe you don't fit quite as effectively as you think you would. And I'd love to understand that a little bit more.
Yeah, it's kind of like growing up in Missouri, there's a ton of Baptists. And so I would go with my friends to like Young Life, which is kind of like a Baptist youth group or Christian youth group. They have them in all sorts of churches. Yeah. And you would see people there, like, they're super good there and they're super good on Sundays, but then they're like sleeping around during the week or whatever. And so I had seen it like in some of my other peer groups, but it was the first time I'd experienced it when I came to Utah, just because it is that lifestyle is the overarching majority. And so it was the first time I'd come into contact with people that were acting a certain way, because it was a cultural thing, less like personal belief system, if that makes sense. And that for me, that was like, it was total cognitive dissonance, right? I was like, how do I reconcile this? I don't understand. So that was hard for me. But then it's just like anywhere, there's good and bad people, whether they are a certain religion or not, or believe or don't believe or anything. I mean, there's just good and bad people everywhere. So it was a really good life lesson for me to understand that, like, you can't just say somebody belongs to this group so they're automatically good, or somebody doesn't belong to this group so they're automatically bad. So that was like a huge life lesson for me, where I kind of made that decision right there, then and there, that it was like I would evaluate my desire to have relationships with people based on who they were individually, and it had nothing to do with anything else.
when you came to Utah, did you go to university here, or what was your ecosystem? You lived with your aunt.
Yep. I lived with my aunt downtown. I got a job at Feature Films for Families, and I have no background in sales, but I did very well, and then didn't want to do that anymore. And I got a job at a spa.
Oh my gosh.
At the ZCMI Center. It was the Sanctuary Day spa. It's not there anymore. And then my ecosystem, I went to the University of Utah, just seminary institute classes is what they're called. So I took like religion classes up at the University of Utah because I couldn't afford to go to college yet, and those don't cost anything. So I was hanging out with college kids up at the U, and then I kind of had my church group from church on Sundays that I spent time with, and that was the community that I had at the time.
We're gonna have to make a connection for you with Feature Films for Families upstairs.
Oh, really?
Mike Bills, our COO, started his career out there. So after this, we'll have to revisit that. That's amazing. So you're up at the U. So actually, some of these experiences with seminary, I'm sorry, is that what it's called? Institute. Sorry, yes, Institute. Are those is that where the cognitive dissonance was happening?
No, because the kids that go to those classes are there because they actually want to learn the stuff. So they're like really wanting to learn like the religious curriculum. They're not going to do that because of cultural pressure. Yeah. It was more the people who just come to church on Sunday because they're trying to meet people. And so that was kind of where the community was a little bit off from what I was expecting.
At that point, were you trying to decide, do I go to school full time or do I start my career, or what was going on through your head to sort of, you're so, knowing you're so milestone and goal driven that I can't imagine you were sort of saying, I'll let life happen. You had a plan and you had a goal. What were you thinking back then?
I was just trying to figure out where I was supposed to be and what I was supposed to be doing. When I got the job at the spa and I was exposed to massage and kind of like the spa world, that was kind of a light bulb for me. And I got the job at the spa in the first place because I'd met a girl who was a massage therapist, and she took me downtown to the Utah College of Massage Therapy to have my first massage. And I remember walking in there and they're like, undress completely. And I was like, you don't need me to take off my underwear. Like, there's no muscles there. I literally, as a like 18, 19-year-old, was thinking, there aren't muscles in my butt. Like, I had no anatomy. I was just like, no, I'm not taking my underwear off. That was weird. So anyway, and then I understood. And after that, I was like, oh, for sure, I'll get all the way naked. This is great. But at the time, I was like, that makes no sense to me. So yeah, that's kind of how I got exposed to that. I got the job at the spa and just loved. I was the spa coordinator, so I kind of pampered people while they were waiting and gave them like foot treatments and made sure the towels were stocked in all the lockers and just made sure everything looked pretty and made sure the waters were full and that there were snacks out. And I kind of love that type of work, the multitasking, like all the little things. Prior to that, when I had lived in Missouri, I had worked at the YMCA and I worked at the front desk, and I loved it because I loved being like answering the phones. Oh, somebody's coming in. Let me take your card. Yes, let me get you a receipt. Oh, you want to sign up for this class? And like just the excitement of it just being different all the time. And so I kind of realized that early on that was something really stimulating and engaging for me. And so I loved that. Being in the spa, it was so fun. And so then I went to massage school and started as a massage therapist and started my own. I decided I wanted to work for myself. I'd worked for the spa, I worked for a chiropractor's office, and then I was like, yeah, I want my own private practice. I want to be my own boss. And then that's when I met my husband and we got married, and I wanted to have a family, and I was like, this is the perfect job for like being able to just work when my baby's asleep, which I did through all three of my daughters for about 12 years. So it was really a good career for me.
Wow. Does that include the Incorporate Massage years, or no?
So there is overlap. So when I started Incorporate Massage in 2010, I had been a massage therapist for 4 or 5 years, and I continued to do that until about 4 years ago, so 2017, when I was in a car accident and I had to have a bunch of surgeries on my wrist and I couldn't do it anymore. So I was still only doing maybe 1 or 2 hours a week. But it's very fulfilling for me. It fills my cup to see those people and be able to help them. I realized early on that I love helping people, and so helping people that were in chronic pain is kind of where I honed in my skills. It was like I worked on people that had been in car accidents and that had, chronic low back pain, chronic neck pain, and I liked rehabilitating their muscles. And so I did have to give that up a few years ago, which was hard, but it was also necessary. Like I couldn't continue to manage, private clients and run the business full time. It was inevitable anyway.
Amelia, could you please dig in a little bit more on that? I'm always intrigued by the genesis moment where you go, I'm going to transition from a career, from working to having what's going on in your head about working for yourself and building Incorporate Massage? Because even as a young person, I imagine you recognized that it was going to be a lot of work to build a business. Or did that only come later?
No, I knew it was going to be a lot of work. There's like a little time in there that I didn't mention, which is when my husband and I first got married, I was doing massage for myself, my own private practice, just in our little basement apartment in what we call Sugar Hood, which is like the west side of Sugar House. And my husband got a job at Liberty Mountain, which is like an outdoor resale or outdoor wholesaler that's here in Salt Lake, and he was working there, and so he could get all the outdoor gear for wholesale, and there were other online retailers at the time. This was kind of like right when backcountry was starting to really gain a lot of market share. And so we were like, well, we can do that. It'll be so easy. We'll set up an online store and we'll buy stuff and then we'll resell it. It'll be so easy. So my husband and I, very naive, went into that, and that's where I learned negotiations. That's where I learned fake it till you make it. I'm walking up to these retailers like the North Face, and I'm like, yeah, we want to sell your stuff. And they don't just give you their stuff to sell. You have to like prove to them that you're going to represent their brand well, and that you're they don't want any bargain basement, type retailers. So having to like sit there and talk to the people at Patagonia and North Face and be like, oh yeah, we're like, oh, we're going to do this. We can totally do this. And we're going to buy this much. And they make you have these obscene like initial orders, like, oh, you have to buy like $10,000 of stuff just for your initial order. And then after that, you can buy more in little pieces. Anyway, so I learned all those skills there. I learned kind of a little bit of website building, basic HTML from running our website. I learned about e-commerce and tax. But it was just me and my husband. We ran that for probably 4 or 5 years. And then the recession hit, and we just had this garage full of tents and backpacks and coats, and nobody wanted to buy that because they were unemployed. And so we ended up selling those like on eBay, which is totally not allowed, so don't tell anyone. But we ended up selling them on eBay for less than what we bought them for at wholesale, just to get some of the money back. And we were left with $60,000 in debt, and I was like, well, crap. Now what are we gonna do? And that's kind of the genesis moment for me. Is like, I love massage. I'm passionate about massage. I wasn't passionate about outdoor gear, so I never enjoyed it. I was learning a ton, so it was valuable. I don't have any regrets. But I wanted to do something I was passionate about, and something that was helping people, which is really my basic, at my core, what I'm passionate about in life, I would say, is just like helping people in general, whether that's physical pain or, mental and emotional pain or whatever it is. Financial independence, like all of those things just like light me up, right? I want people to have freedom and the opportunity to live a good life. So I was like, okay, massage is the thing. It's what I'm passionate about. It's what I know. How can I scale that? Because I can only do so many massages in a day, and having my own business, private practice, like a lot of solopreneurs, it's not really having a business. It's like, it's still you, it's dependent on you. If you're not doing it, you're not making any money. So I wanted to kind of take that to the next level. Like, how do I do something that isn't dependent on me actually doing massages? Because the life of a massage therapist is like 3 years before they're injured or retire or burn out, right?
Wow, I didn't know that.
Yeah, it's like 3 to 5 years. So people either work too hard and they don't want to do it anymore, or they hurt themselves. But it's rare that you see someone that's been doing it for 15 years. So I knew those things, and I was just like, how do I find something that I can make money and get my family out of debt and still be passionate about? So I had gone to school with a gal who had been doing massage for her brother's business like since we had gotten out of school. And so I just called her up and I was like, hey, how does this work? And so they had like Massage Mondays. There's like a paper sign-up sheet at the front desk that the receptionist managed, and people would come sign their name on their slot. I asked her about like how she got paid, what she charged, because she had started doing it, and then she had hired someone to come in and do it, and was just splitting the cost with them. So she was making like $700 a month in residual income, which to me was like life-changing. I was like, oh my gosh, that would be amazing. And so I just kind of took everything that I learned from her conversation, and she had no desire to scale it or grow it or anything like that. It was just like this one account. So I was like, okay, how can we like leverage technology to like make this more scalable, make it a better customer experience? And my wheels just started turning. I've always had an affinity for technology. I studied computer science before I went into health and wellness, changed my major. So, and I even did VOTech school in high school. Wow. So I did study COBOL programming for any of the techies. Wow. It's like an ancient language.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I understand logic and can manage to stumble through code a little bit, enough to like understand what some of it is doing. So yeah, I was just like, we can take this idea, do it better. I'll just like see if anyone will buy it. It'll just be an experiment. So I built like a brand and a logo and marketing assets, and I just handed them out to all my friends and said, take these to work and see if any of your employers will hire us. And it was about maybe 6 weeks later, I got a phone call from Ray Quinney and Nebaker downtown, the law firm, and they were like, we need 3 massage therapists for admin day. Can you help us? And I was like, I had no team, right? It was just me. I was like, oh, totally. Because I already learned fake it till you make it talking to the North Face, right? I'm just like, yeah, we can totally do that. She's like, how much do you charge? And I'm like, I had to think quick, right? So I'm just like, well, it's got to be low enough that they for sure say yes, because I need my first win, but it also has to be high enough that I'm not like underselling it so much and I make no money, right? So I was just like, $55. And they're like, okay, cool, send us the paperwork. So then I'm like, all right, I gotta find 3 massage therapists. And luckily they're like very proactive and plan very far in advance. So I had like a whole month to like build the team and, make sure they were there. And then at the first event, I'm just like in the room and I'm like, do I just sit here while they massage? I mean, at some point I have to just leave, but I felt guilty leaving them. And so I went downstairs and like bought them all like apple juices and waters and stuff. And I was like, here guys, I got these for you. And now I'm gonna leave. Please just keep massaging and don't stop. Like fingers crossed. But I remember driving through downtown Salt Lake and I called my dad and I was like, Dad, I just made like $900 and I didn't have to do the massages. It was freaking amazing. It was like what I made in a week, and I had made it like without having to do the physical labor. So that was like such an aha moment for me to be like, okay, I can do this. And now it's just rinse and repeat. You got to just build the system and go.
It's amazing. I know you just sort of say, oh, I figured out a little bit of marketing, and I figured out how to code and put up a website, and I figured out the degree of hustle and self-confidence that it takes to tackle all of that is rare. It's sincerely rare. Not many. I certainly struggle with all of those elements today. I have no idea how, as a young person like you were, you just decide to tackle this and figure it out. It's so impressive, Amelia, sincerely.
Thank you. Yeah,
so
I think one of the things I've learned about myself through this journey is that I have like 2 aptitudes that I was just born with naturally. One of them is the ability to learn very quickly.
Yeah.
And so I'm just like a really good learner. I'm not necessarily an expert at everything, but I can learn quickly, which when we get to like our pivot, like I had to learn the mental health space in like days. And I was just like information, so that I could speak to it intelligently and become basically an expert on the mental health industry. Not a counselor, I can't like advise you, but I know what is happening in the space and what the statistics are and what treatment like types there are and things like that. So I had to learn that very quickly. But yeah, learning and then pattern recognition is something that's super interesting that I didn't know until I was in a car accident. I had a brain injury and I was part of this hyperbaric oxygen study. And part of that study was doing these periodic tests, cognitive tests. And the pattern recognition stuff, the lady was like, I've never seen anyone like score so high on like patterns. I was like, oh, that probably translates because I can recognize patterns I see in the market a little bit faster than a normal person because I like pick up on those, I don't know how else to say it, but just patterns, those signals, and I'll be like, oh, and then I can make an educated guess on like, I think it's going to continue on this trajectory and just have a higher probability of being correct. But I think those are two like natural abilities I was born with that I didn't recognize at the time that probably contributed to my success.
Well, I have to tell you that you bring up the pivot because until you pivoted, and I remember our conversations during your pivot, I was already blown away by what you had done with Incorporate Massage. And had it not been for the pivot, I would love to dig in more on that because you built an incredible business very, very quickly. The only thing that surpasses that in amazement is what you did in a matter of weeks and how you reacted and how you confronted this once in a generation event. So I'd love for you to sort of describe the business in March of last year and then how you reacted and how you responded to the pandemic.
Okay, so March of last year, we were on track to basically do 50% of what we had done the year prior in revenue in Q1. So significant growth. We were like exceeding all of our goals. So thrilled. It was like the year. We were like, this is our year. We're finally, we finally made it. It's like such a struggle. Even though we'd been growing fast and having success, the years prior, we were like missing our revenue marks and like we had made bad hiring decisions and like a lot of that stuff I was still learning. And so we had like leaders that were failing and I realized what the cost of all those things were. And like I had learned those lessons. So this was like the first year where I was like, we know like most of the things and we can do this. And we're like in an awesome position to scale. So we were so thrilled going into March. And we were going to be profitable again in April. So we'd raised money twice before. The first time we raised money, we got profitable again in I think 9 months. And then we'd raise money again and we were on track to be profitable again, like in a month or two. And it was just like, basically in the course of 10 days, we watched it just go to zero. And it was like completely flatlined. We had no revenue at all. And we had like $2 million on contracts. Can't hold people to those contracts. Legally, we're not even allowed to go in and massage them. Like we are the ones who can't uphold our end of the contract legally. So we can't hold them to continue paying us. So immediately, and a lot of the credit goes to my board because I was like, well, this will just be a couple weeks, right? We all hoped that. Everyone hoped that, I think. My board was like, nope, you put together a plan for 4 weeks, 6 weeks, and 8 weeks. And so I did that and like how we were gonna adjust to control burn. And then a couple weeks later, they're like, nope, let's look at 4 months and 6 months. Like now we're gonna go out even further. And I remember being like, I was a little bit mad. I said to one of my board members, I was like, this is a waste of my time. This is not going to last 6 months. And I have more important things to do. And they pushed back and they were like, no, you are going to build a 6-month cash plan. And oh my gosh, like piece of humble pie. I was like, oh, here we are 13 months in and it's still not open. So, many thanks and appreciation to my board for that because I don't think we'd have survived. I didn't realize how unique of an event it really was. I'm still young.
No one did, but
yeah. And so, I was very, very lucky. So my board very early on was like, they just kept saying, pretend massage will never come back. What is your plan? What do you do with the money you have in the bank? What do you do with the people that you have, the platform you built, the resources, the processes? Like you have built this amazing business. Pretend like your service is completely gone and it will never come back. And they had to be like that direct with me. And I was like, oh, okay. I'll plan that. Meanwhile, still thinking like, oh, our $6 million business is gonna come back. It'll be back. This will just be temporary. So we went through a series of things. One was like talking to our existing customers. What other needs did they have that I could see that were consistent across all these conversations that maybe we were uniquely positioned to be able to fill those needs. The other thing was like talking to all of our customers and being like, can you just keep paying us and build credits for the future, right? And so we tried to get as many of them to continue paying us. And we have awesome clients. There were quite a few of them that were like, yeah, we'll keep paying you. And like even some just barely that were like, okay, we're going to stop paying now and just like use our credits as soon as we're back in the office. And, you know, and they'll all continue paying once they've used up their credits and stuff. But I mean, we had like really supportive clients. We were really lucky with some of those. And then we kind of like surveyed our team to see what else they could do. You know, what other skills do you guys have? We can't touch people. So anybody know how to do anything else? And so we basically came up with a list of people that had a list of certifications and licenses in other kind of service areas. Most massage therapists have other jobs and other skill sets. A lot of yoga instructors, personal trainers. We have registered dietitians, life coaches. And so we kind of just put together this suite of like, here's a handful of services. And I thought, oh, it'll be exactly the same. It'll be a 1-to-1 ratio, and the companies can just like give this out to their employees, and we'll probably even make more money. That was not the case at all. It was like really hard to sell, and nobody was buying anything anyway. Like all the companies were just like, you know, everyone was just in total freeze mode. So the first like 6 months of the pandemic, there wasn't a ton of movement. But the first thing we had to do, because we knew we weren't doing just massage anymore, we had to come up with a new name. So we rebranded in 3 weeks. It was a very intense grind. There was a lot of like not really sleeping, just like me and like my marketing guy, just like working all night trying to come up with like what it was going to be, building the plan with the team. So we rolled that out in 3 weeks. We were super blessed because we got a PPP loan. So then we were able to like, we actually ramped our team up and ran with this idea of like, we do virtual services now, and we built a content library of like pre-recorded yoga and meditation and fitness classes and all these things. And we ran that as hard as we could and burned through the PPP like you're supposed to, and most of it was forgiven. And they were all hired knowing, or brought back from furlough if they were furloughed, knowing like we have this much money and this much runway. We're going to run as hard and as fast as we can, and then you're going to have to go back on furlough if we're not making money. We ran as hard as we could. And we weren't making money because companies still weren't spending any money. It was a dark time. But so I kind of thought like, oh, we don't really have a product. Like people aren't really buying it. But then we did start actually selling content subscriptions. So companies just kind of in like September-ish is kind of when we saw it start to change. Companies were like, this isn't going away. Our employees are struggling. We need a solution for managing their well-being while they're working remotely. So we started signing contracts for that, and I was like really excited. And then the other thing that happened is our life coaches started getting overwhelmed with all these questions and problems that they couldn't help them solve because they have not been to school for anxiety and depression counseling, right? They're life coaches. They're like, positive thinking, hit that goal. Here's how you set boundaries, like, you know, having good energy, and it's all just positive thinking stuff. So they started coming to me like, these people have like real problems. We need to refer them to someone. So my initial thought was, okay, let's set up a referral partner. Like we want to help these people, not to make money off of them. So we looked for partners. I was on the phone with like mental health clinic after mental health clinic, all here in Utah, because we were only experimenting with these new products just with our Utah clients because we live here, they know us, and we have a good relationship with them. They'll give us honest feedback. So I was just like, okay, let's see if we can find someone just so we can just like send them leads. Every single person I talked to was like, we don't have bandwidth for that. We're backed up like 8 weeks. We do not have people for that. And I was like, there's a huge demand that is unmet. So my next thought was, well, maybe there's a huge shortage of counselors. Maybe there just aren't a lot of, you know, therapists out there. And so let's post a job ad and see if we can find somebody. And so we have like this amazing recruiting team that has spent a decade ramping up massage therapists and their W-2 employees in any area we need to. So if we signed with Primary Children's Hospital and they're like, we need 30 massage therapists every day for a week, and we have 25, that team goes out and we book it and we say, yeah, we'll get it done. And then our recruiting team swoops in and helps us find the people. So this is their specialty and what they know how to do. And so I was like, okay, recruiting team, let's just throw a counselor out there. Let's just see if we can find anything. Fully expecting that like there was a huge shortage because we're in a national mental health crisis. Isn't every counselor booked back to back with no bandwidth? Wasn't the case, not at all. So I think we had an advantage because a lot of people like working remotely, and a lot of clinics were still doing in-person stuff. I mean, like my youngest daughter sees a behavioral therapist, and all through COVID, it was in person. So I think that was appealing. And there really are a lot of counselors out there. So then we were like, okay, we're doing this. Let's hire one. So we started with one. She's now our lead clinician and manages, we have 50 therapists on staff now, so she manages all of them. But we started with just one, and I was just like, let's just see if we can sell it. Let's be like, and we also do therapy. Does anyone want to buy teletherapy? And what was interesting is we didn't sell it to our existing clients. Only now, like, I don't know, we launched with our first client in October, and it's April? So 6 months, 7 months later, only now are we just starting to sell that teletherapy product to our previous clients. But in the beginning, it was all new, different clients that we never worked with before. It was really interesting. That's not what I expected to happen. But yeah, so we started selling teletherapy just through broker partnerships because we already have really good relationships with brokers because we've been doing massages for their clients' health fairs for like a decade.
For a long time,
they
yeah.
already like us, have a good relationship. They know we're professional, we're reliable, we make them look good. And so we were super lucky because we already had those relationships and we could just come in and be like, and now we do this. So my next job was like, I have to impress them with our product. And so we did a lot of demos for brokers. And yeah, we closed our first deal. It launched October 1st. Then we had like 2 more companies start in November and then a couple in December. And then it's just boom, 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 boom from there. So through those 6 or 7 months since we've been doing mental health, our whole message and brand positioning has changed from like, it's wellness, like whatever kind of wellness you want. And now it's definitely like we are a mental health company. It's a mental health platform. We provide teletherapy services and this suite of proactive care that's available in a pre-recorded way. So it started off as just like, we can do yoga with your employees, like live, and it like has morphed into this, you know, we're a mental health tech company. So it's been an interesting ride that has happened very quickly, and we've had to just like learn and iterate. Like I swear, every week we add some new positioning statement to our website or tweak it in some way because we learn something new. We're like, oh, we now have therapists in 6 countries. Oh, we need to put that on our website. We're a global provider now, you know. So yeah, it's just learn as fast as you can. That's what it's been.
It's so amazing to hear about this now a year later, because I remember a year ago conversations with you and other entrepreneurs, and we'd be on a group discussion and each of us would go and talk about the challenge and the concern we have for our businesses. And then you'd step up and say, my business went to 0. And aside from the shock that establishes and the sense of what the hell are we complaining about, look at her, look at this entrepreneur. I still distinctly remember all of us thinking, because I remember your approach. You weren't saying, poor me, what am I going to do? You were literally, I remember you thinking, I'm going to launch a new business in 2 or 3 weeks. And you did it. And you built a platform in a matter of weeks to months as well, a different platform, a completely new platform. And here a year later, after the biggest shock that every economy in the world has ever had, you have a new business. It's incredible. I mean, it's such an amazing story, Amelia. Good for you.
Yeah, it's true. A lot of people had a hard time because they had a 30% reduction or even a 60 or 70% reduction. But yeah, we had actually it was 98. So when we filled out our second PPP loan application, you had to put in your revenue because there was a 25% reduction requirement. And I remember I typed in the revenue for both years and it pushed the button and it said 98%. And that was like a gut punch. Like I remember I was nauseous. I was like, oh my gosh, like what am I doing? And I remember I took a screenshot of it and put it on our leadership team Slack channel. And I was like, you guys, this is brutal. Like it made, I try to not stop long enough to like dwell on the negative. Like it's just, there's too much to do. You just keep going forward. You process. And I always have, one of my board members taught me this. You're like, be sad for a day. And then you get up and you move on. Like you are allowed to grieve for the time, but it has like, you can't stay stuck there. You have to keep going. And so I had grieved multiple times for the loss of something I spent a decade building. Like it did feel like I lost a part of me. But I had to keep moving forward. So just seeing that number like in print was like so gut-wrenching. I was like, oh my gosh. And it even made me think for a second. I was like, are we crazy? can we do, is there coming back from 98% revenue loss? But for my team, it was like, whoa, we're still here after 98% revenue. Like, it was like all inspiring for them. I had like a totally different reaction, but yeah, 98%.
After sharing this incredibly amazing story, I think I and those watching would have an impression of what you'd be proud of. But aside from your wonderful family now, as you look over your whole life, what are you most proud of?
Aside from my family, I am very proud of the positive effect that we're able to have on working mothers specifically. Recently, we now have like stay-at-home dads with babies who work for us too. But I've always really been proud of the fact that like we've always been a remote team. We've always had workplace flexibility. There's part-time roles for people, very family friendly. Even still, we bring new people on, and I was talking to somebody the other day and they kept apologizing that their baby kept like crying, and I was like, it's fine. Like, there's literally always a baby in our meetings.
Somewhere.
Like, someone is crying. Like, it's fine. We're used to it. It's been that way forever. I don't even hear it. It doesn't bother me at all. In fact, it's been cool because even our new CSM, who's a stay-at-home dad, we'll be doing meetings with a client. He's got his little baby Tommy in his front pack, who's 4 months old, and like people just love it. I love that like COVID has made that more acceptable, but we've always been doing that. So I'm proud of that fact. And then also what we were able to do for the massage industry as a whole is basically, like, when we first started, people were like, massage in the office, that's weird. Like, I'm not like touching people at work. And so, I mean, we came in, and then we were just lucky because we were running while that bell curve started to go up. And then by the time people were looking for it, they would find us because we had been in position for years before massage in the workplace became popular. Through that, so many people, we were their first massage. People had never been comfortable, wanted to go to a spa, get totally undressed. Like, think about that. That is like, I remember my first massage, which I told you about earlier. We're like, I don't want to use gateway drug because like that is not the right term, but basically, yeah, we're people's little appetizer that they would never have otherwise had the full meal of massage.
Absolutely.
We want to go with that metaphor. Like, I remember we signed this office. They were one of our first clients. They're still our client today, and it was just a bunch of men. None of them had had massage before, and they took a chance on us, and they were like, yeah, I think this will be cool. 15-minute massages at work. And now they're all like avid massage people, and they've told me like, I never would have tried this if we weren't doing it at the office. So I feel like when you scale that up to 1,200 massage therapists and 4,000 companies, and all those companies' employees that we've massaged, how many people were we their first massage? And it was this positive experience, and we helped them manage pain or manage stress, and then opened that door for them that they were like, this is something I'm going to do to take care of myself the rest of my life, and get full body massage. And I feel like we had a huge impact on the massage industry as a whole because we were pushing that whole initiative forward. And so now I get to take that whole idea, and I'm like, let's do the same thing for mental health. Mental health is stigmatized. People are afraid of it. Therapy, and if they're taking any kind of medication for depression or anxiety, like all of that stuff is shame, shame, shame. I'm like, what if we make it like fun and cool to use counseling services? And what if we make it feel approachable and destigmatized, exactly like we did with massage? Like, how much more of an effect could we have on the world when we're helping people with their mental and emotional pain, and we're kind of that gateway, that first way of opening the door to them, like really helping themselves mentally and emotionally. So that is really what cool. I'm most proud of, and what I'm most excited about, and lights me up. I'm like, we're really changing the world.
It's so great to see your energy behind that. You really, that's fantastic.
Thanks.
Let's complement that with, is there something that stands out as a regret for you, whether it's in business or in life?
I know that's such a hard question. In general, I don't have regrets. Like, as long as you learn from any experience, it's not a regret, because you're always moving forward if you're learning. I tell my employees that all the time. If they make a mistake, You just don't make the same mistake. As long as you learn from it, it's progress. And we're not upset when mistakes are made. But I would say my biggest regret is it comes back to the people. Even though I didn't have control over it, like the feeling of having to furlough people who are counting on you, there's nothing more devastating and horrible. Like I've never been more sick in my life. But also promoting or hiring the wrong fit. Like you let the whole team down, right? And I mean, I have regrets about people I've promoted when they weren't ready, that kind of brought the whole team down, or people that you hold on to for too long that are like, because what happens is like you want them to do better, you want them to succeed, you want them to improve, but it sends a message to everyone else when they're not carrying their weight, and it frustrates them and they feel slighted in some way, and it brings the morale of the whole team down. So my regrets mainly would revolve around promoting people who aren't ready, hiring the wrong fit, or not firing people fast enough. So
thank you for sharing that. So as we bring this to a close, I want to ask you, if you were now to talk to that little girl in Kansas City, Missouri, and give her 10 or 20 seconds of advice to prepare her for the rest of her life, what would you tell her?
I would tell her that she is so much stronger than she thinks she is. I think that's true of all of us, right? We don't know our strength until it's really tested. And there's just no way you know what you're capable of. And I think that's one of the biggest lessons I've learned this last year, is that I have so much strength that I would have never known was there if I hadn't have had to go through all this.
Amelia, thank you so much for making the time in what is a crazy schedule. Thank you for being so authentic and vulnerable and sharing your story. It really means a lot to me. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me.